Wow. Dad's in recovery. What a day. What a day I've had today. And just going to share with you guys a little bit about, what's been happening. The I started this consciously started this journey of working with men in recovery to be dads, be great dads. Just you know, I don't know, 6 months ago, 7 months ago. Although it's been my experience, I've been a dad for 40 some years. I've been in recovery for 40 some years, and as an alcoholic addict, uh, when uh, my first daughter was born, and I had no friggin' idea how to be a dad. I really didn't, and lots of things I didn't see. I'm seeing more clearly now that, and I mentioned in my last video that the fact that you know the mother of my children has always been supportive of me is huge. It's really huge. And I came from a family where the truth is my mom was not very happy with my father, and she was very vocal about that. And you know, she didn't think my mom didn't really seem to like men at all, and I happened to be one of them. So my attitude towards myself, from my own mother was not that great. But what I see right now is I'm working with dads in recovery. I see that a lot of the situation is like it's generational. You know, many of the men I'm working with didn't have dads, or dad didn't show up very well, or at all. And they seem to be attracted to often to women who or women are attracted to them who didn't have dads, and so then they have children, and because their family, they didn't come from a family where mom and dad stayed together. Often there's no idea of how to do that, and it's not easy in the best of times. For those of you, my brother and his wife, celebrated 51 years together today. Wow. And has it always been easy? I don't think so. But they 51 years. That's great. But many of us don't even know people like that. And yeah, many of us don't even know people like that. So anyway, how do we support men in being great dads? And what I find is in the conversations with dads, men are, when you talk to men, rarely does anybody say, "How is it going? How's your job as a dad going?" People want to know how you're doing in business, how you're doing, with your hobbies, how you're doing, where'd you go to school, whatever, those kind of things. But not, it isn't a conversation that comes up, and so it's like, is it important? Is it important? Yes, it's important, and I think that we need to lift men up. In, even men who, seem to be getting it, it's working, but, lots of times in a society where, the divorce rate is like 50% or something like that. So we have all of these complications that happen in the relationship. Now, the new relationship is, how do I, co-parent, and really easy for dad to say, okay, maybe I'm not needed, or for mom to say, to push dad away because she's not happy with him, and that lots of complications come in, arguing over money, and maybe mom meets a new guy, or dad meets a new gal, and it's even more complicated, but how do we stay on task as a dad? And wow. So I'm doing lots of one-on-one coaching now with men, and I'm going to do another course in the fall. And my main thrust is supporting the men, but I'm seeing now that women, need to need to be heard. They need to be heard, you know. And I just talked to a gal for just a few minutes ago, a friend of mine on the phone. She's a single mom, and but she's very, very supportive of the father of her daughter being active in her daughter's life. She's very supportive of that, but I'd send her my last video, which was got very, a lot of people watched it, and I sent it to her, and I said, "What do you think of this? Like your feedback?" And she said, "Well, I'm very," she texted me back after she watched it, and she said, I'm very in favor of dad being involved in children's lives as long as he's healthy." And I texted her back, "Healthy? Question mark. Who's healthy? You know, and who judges who's healthy?" And so women are in this situation often where they're trying to, and she said, we ended up on the phone, and she said, "Well, thank you for that question, because I guess what I meant is that there's not abuse, or or no active addiction." Well, even active addiction is, who's to say that, when do we cut dad off? You know, when do we say, "Oh, you can't see your son or daughter"? I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. When do we do that? And where does dad reach out for help? Because often we feel like failures. Dad feels like he's failed. The marriage broke up, and he doesn't really know how to be a dad, especially if he didn't have a dad, and or if his dad wasn't very active, and and many of us, especially if we're in recovery, we depending on whether we've done the work or not, if we're kind of in the 12-step world and we haven't done the work, well, we still haven't grown up. What happens in the recovery world is that we grow up. We do. We grow up. We learn how to live. We get a design for living that helps us to live by principles instead of by feelings. We're not living by feelings. We're living by principles. We show up. We live by honesty, right? We do our best to be honest as we can be. We live by, not judging. We see our own part in things. We live with a relationship and a higher power. Those are mature things, and it takes time for men to grow up. And often we have kids, we're married, and we've no idea what it means to be a mature man. So men need our support to become mature men. They need to know that it's important to be a dad. So that's my mission. And I've looked at this thing, I'm like, holy shit, this is huge. The big picture here, when you look at our jails are full of men and women who came from fatherless homes, right? The women who are in shelters, because of abuse, came often from fatherless homes, or they were abused as young girls. And so we want to break that chain. And I think it starts by encouraging dad, loving dad, listening to dad, and listening to mom. Not, if she's got to get her anger off her chest, great, listen. Be a good listener, and listen to dad. Let him, excuse me, let him get it out, So it's a big deal, this whole thing, and it scares the heck out of me sometimes, because it's not just I started out, I'm going to, build this course that's going to run evergreen. I need help with it, actually. If you, I've got the content, lots of the content, but it's just so big. There's so many men who need to be heard and need to be listened to, and we've put some men through the course, and I'm doing some one-on-one stuff, and I'm going to do another course, and I need to hear back from you guys. So if you're on YouTube or whatever, tell me what you think about this. Are you a dad? How are things with your dad? How were things with your dad? Have you, healed the relationship there? How are things with the father of your kids? Have you worked on healing that relationship? It's never too late. Like, it's never too late. Your kids could be in their 30s and 40s, and And if you haven't been talking to them, open that door again. You know, it's time to heal that, and do the best that you can to heal those relationships. Um, yeah, that's it. It's a bigger job than I had imagined, but we're in, and I've just kind of, I'm glad that I haven't rushed with this thing, because the more I look at it, the bigger it is, and the more I see our society, you know, we're a little different here. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and she's spent a lot of time in South and Central America in smaller towns, and where the community is more involved in the family life. And here in the West, lots of times we don't know our neighbors, we don't know the situation. People are isolating, and men don't have connections with other men who are dads, and so I'm going to help build that, and like your support on that. So tell us what you think. Make comments in the if this is on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever you see this, make comments and tell me what you think. And dad, who could be more important? When the family breaks up, often the kids go with mom, right? And dad is kind of left out of the deal, and he doesn't know what to do, and he's angry because he's not mature, and so we're here to support dad in becoming a mature man, becoming, you know um, yeah, to becoming a loving, active dad. And I encourage men, that if the relationship is broken up and the family's broken up, it doesn't mean that we can't continue to love the mother of our children. It doesn't mean that we have to. It's not we're talking about a different kind of love, not a romantic love, but just a caring, an honest, caring love. That's a mature love. It's different than a feelings love. So, Kate, I love you guys. Thank you, and love to hear your feedback and what you think of this. And cheers. Bye.